What is good with y'all? It's your boy Chris, and we're back on Spurs Spotlight with another banger.
Yeah, y'all gonna stop coming in my live talking about this Victor dude, bro. We hooping this year. Y'all gonna see.
Alright, team. Will Chris Paul get traded this season? Now, I've seen this come up a couple of times online. I want to give y'all my thoughts on it, so we're bringing it here to Spurs Spotlight. And leave it down below in the comments what y'all think. Is Chris Paul going to get traded, or will he stay with us the entire season? Quan Wick on Twitter, y'all go ahead and give him a follow if y'all haven't. He posted, Chris Paul's very specific contract is designed so teams can absorb it into their non-taxpayer MLE, the mid-level exception. I've enjoyed all of his involvement and I'm happy to have him in San Antonio, but he's for sure getting traded at the deadline. And if you look at his contract, it's a 1 year, $10.4 million. And as y'all can see right here, the non-taxpayer mid-level exception is $12.8 million, with deals lasting up to 4 years and first-year salaries of up to $12.8 million. Basically, the Spurs and Chris Paul came together and chose this specific price on his contract so it could be flexible in case he does want to get traded or in case there is a good trade. The reason Chris Paul decided that he wanted to come to San Antonio was to prove that he is still an elite point guard. That's what he said. I don't think he's very elite anymore, but I think he's serviceable for sure. And we've seen that with the past couple of preseason games. He has us moving. He has us looking more like a functioning offense. You know, there's not too much running around not knowing what you're doing. I do not think this means that Chris Paul is for sure going to get traded. You don't know what the team really looks like yet, so I don't think the Spurs have made a decision whether they're going to trade him or not. I think they chose this number just in case he wants to get traded, because if you ask me, 10.4 mil is about what you should be paying for Chris Paul at this stage of his career, in my opinion. I don't think he should be getting a bag anymore, and I think he knows that. That's really why he was okay with signing this type of contract. If the Spurs are playing really good, we could just keep Chris Paul for the whole year. After that, he is a free agent, so it really just depends on how the Spurs are playing at that time. But what I saw earlier really made me think about Chris Paul could possibly be staying. Shout out CP3 Region for the post. He said, Chris Paul and possibly coaching in the future. He said, I was talking to my wife today because I have always said I would never coach, but just thinking about it, I don't know, trying to figure it out. And CP3 is also interested in ownership. I think this is the perfect place for Chris Paul to figure out whether he wants to coach or not. You know, he's mentoring young guys kind of in a player coach type role. He's currently mentoring players like Stephon Castle, Julian Champagne, really everybody on the team, along with Wemby. The Spurs are the perfect place to finish off your career. You know, Pop's gonna load manage you. You're gonna squeeze the most out of your career. And what I was thinking is, after this season, he could go one or two ways. He could become an assistant here or some sort of coach, or if he wants to continue to play, he could sign another deal and be the backup point guard until he wants to retire. After this season, I think Stephon Castle should for sure start, and you could run Trey Jones and Chris Paul off the bench because they don't look bad together. Just from what we've seen, they've run a couple double guard lineups and they haven't looked bad this preseason. Granted, it's only preseason. I think there is a spot for CP3 if he wants to stay, just in a reduced role. Obviously, this will be if Chris Paul comes to terms with he's close to retirement and he doesn't really care to be elite. He could just ride it out with this core and maybe we could make a couple playoff pushes before he retires. So those are the two possibilities I see. Either he can get traded or he can ride it out with the Spurs. But to be honest, if he doesn't get traded, I don't know where else he would go. Like, if he doesn't get traded, I think he could re-sign with the Spurs. I would like CP3 to re-sign next season and be that backup. But y'all let me know what y'all are thinking down below in the comments. Would y'all rather let CP3 walk or trade him? Or would you keep him and have that backup point guard presence for as long as he wants to stay here? Who knows? He might just, if he really loves it here, he could become an assistant coach. I wouldn't mind that either. Now, getting into some clips, I just want to go ahead and show y'all just what Chris Paul has been doing on the court, because I think he's been hooping and he's been providing exactly what we need him to provide. Shout out CP3 Region for the clips. CP3 hits the 3 over Bam Adebayo. And he's not a high volume 3-point shooter. He's never been that. He's more getting in the mid-range and methodical, but he can space the floor out, and he's been hitting those threes that they've been leaving him open on. Now, one thing I didn't like Chris Paul for when he was our opponents was his trash talk, or like how he played. But now that he's on the Spurs, I love it. And as you can see, CP3 and Jimmy Butler trash talking each other during the game. Jimmy gives CP3 a little push when guarding him. And this rivalry, I didn't know this. It actually roots back to Chris Paul's Phoenix Sun days, whenever he threw the ball off Duncan Robinson, I believe, and then Jimmy kind of pushed him and stuff. And so now they're just drawing back and forth, keeping the rivalry going. You know what? I like this. CP3 get negative, bring some energy to the team. That's what we like to see. Jeremy Sochan is going to feed off this during the regular season, so I'm excited to see it. Not too much, not too much, nothing dirty or nothing, but I like to see Chris Paul get a little aggressive and get active. As I said before, he's hitting those threes that they're leaving him open on. He just comes off the screen, drains the little three ball. This is something we haven't had the luxury of doing before because, Trey Jones wasn't a three-point shooter, so he never really did that. So it was nice to see the change. A little pick and roll action with Zach Collins. Off to the midi. That's vintage CP3 right there. And altogether, he had 13 points, 5 assists, 5 for 7 at the field, 3 for 5 3-point shooting, 25 minutes. This is exactly what I want to see out of Chris Paul. There was another game where he had 8 assists and no turnovers. Games like that are what really shows Chris Paul's ability nowadays. Still a great vet, and I would love to keep him on the team for the rest of the season. Now, I'd prefer if we didn't trade him just for this one season and then see if he was cool coming off the bench, and if he's not, then obviously we got to let him go. But if he buys into being on the bench, being a little player coach until he wants to retire, maybe go off into coaching, that would be something I would like to see. But y'all leave it down below in the comments. What do y'all think? What do y'all want for CP3? Would you rather trade him at the deadline? Leave it down below. As always, make sure to leave a like. Subscribe to Spurs Spotlight. And until then, it's me, your boy Chris, and I'll catch y'all later. Peace.